You are already awake. It is 2 inches the morning, and your left calf has seized into a knot so violent and so complete that you are gripping the mattress with both hands, jaw clenched, waiting for it to release. You have been drinking water all day. You carried that enormous jug everywhere you went. You hit your gallon. You hit it yesterday too. You have been flooding your body with plain filtered water like every nutritionist, every wellness account, and every well-meaning primary care physician has insisted you must. You ran to the bathroom 14 times before dinner. Your ankles are puffy. Your brain has felt wrapped in damp cotton since noon. And now here you are, in the dark, cramping so hard your foot is curling against your will, completely and utterly dehydrated. Not dehydrated the way your doctor measures. Your blood panel looks acceptable. Your urine has been clear all week, exactly like they told you it should be. But your cells, the actual living tissue inside your muscles and your brain and your skin, are shriveled. They are starving for water they cannot access. And nobody in the mainstream health conversation is talking about this because the real solution does not come in a branded electrolyte packet with artificial sweetener and 5 milligrams of sodium designed to look clinical on a shelf. Stay with me, because what I am about to reveal rewrites everything you have been told about hydration after 50. Hold 2 questions in your mind right now. First, if you are drinking that much water, why are you still cramping? Second, where exactly is all that water going? By the time this video ends, both of those answers will not just make sense, they will make you genuinely furious at the advice you have been following for years. Here is what your doctor was never taught in medical school and what the bottled water industry desperately does not want you to calculate. After the age of 50, the human body undergoes a fundamental shift in what scientists call osmotic regulation. This is the biological system that governs how water moves across cell membranes and into tissue. When you are young, your cells behave like a fresh, fully saturated kitchen sponge. Squeeze it and water flows freely. Press it against a dry surface and it transfers moisture immediately. The sponge is responsive, elastic, and efficient at moving hydration exactly where the body needs it. Now take that same sponge and leave it on a counter for 4 days. Let it dry completely until it is rigid and contracted, almost brittle at the edges. Now pour a full cup of plain water directly onto it. Watch what happens. The water does not absorb. It cannot absorb. It cascades off the surface, runs along the sides, pools on the counter beneath it, and disappears down the drain. The sponge stays dry at its core. The water made contact but never got inside. That sponge is your muscle tissue after 50. That cup of water is your gallon jug. And that puddle on the counter is every bathroom visit you made before lunch. The mechanism behind this is called intracellular dehydration, and it is one of the most clinically documented and simultaneously most ignored phenomena in age-related metabolic decline. As we age, the concentration of osmolytes inside our cells, the charged particles and organic compounds that create the osmotic pull necessary to draw water through the cell membrane, decreases substantially. Research published in the American Journal of Physiology has confirmed that intracellular water content in skeletal muscle declines by as much as 15% between the ages of 40 and 65, independent of total fluid intake. You can drink 10 glasses of water and not move that number a single point if the osmotic environment inside your cells has collapsed. What happens to the water instead? It follows the path of least resistance. It stays in the extracellular space, the fluid surrounding the tissues rather than inside them. It pools in the lower extremities as mild edema, that subtle puffiness you notice in your feet and ankles by afternoon. It circulates back to the kidneys, which detect the excess extracellular volume and flush it out with ruthless efficiency. And all the while, your muscle fibers are contracting against a background of intracellular mineral depletion so severe that your motor neurons begin firing erratically at night, producing the involuntary cramping that wakes you out of a dead sleep. Your brain is experiencing the same crisis. Neuronal tissue is among the most hydration-dependent tissue in the entire body. Cerebral cells require precise intracellular water volume to maintain the ion gradients that produce clear cognition, sharp memory retrieval, and stable emotional regulation. When intracellular hydration drops, the brain compensates by reducing non-essential cognitive load. You call it brain fog. Researchers call it hyperosmotic neural suppression. Either way, it feels like thinking through wet concrete, and no amount of plain water running through a collapsed osmotic system is going to fix it. The actionable solution to reverse this is coming, and it is going to be specific enough that you will be able to start it tomorrow morning. Here is what the hydration industry built its entire revenue model on ignoring. Keep people buying plain water, flavored water, enhanced water, alkaline water. None of it addresses the osmotic collapse inside aging cells. Not a single product on that shelf. And I need you to understand exactly why the most popular hydration advice being given to people over 50 is not just useless, but is actively accelerating the problem. The recommendation you have heard from every corner of mainstream health media is this: drink 8 to 10 glasses of water per day, preferably filtered or reverse osmosis purified, because pure water is cleaner, safer, and better for your body. This sounds logical. It is also clinically damaging for the aging body. And here's the data. Reverse osmosis, water, and heavily filtered water are what chemists call hypotonic solutions. They contain almost zero dissolved mineral content. When you consume large volumes of this demineralized water, your blood sodium concentration begins to fall. This condition is called dilutional hyponatremia, and even in its mild subclinical form, it has profoundly damaging metabolic consequences. A study published in the Clinical Journal of Sport Medicine found that participants consuming large volumes of plain water experienced measurable drops in serum sodium, beginning at just 2 liters of intake. For a sedentary or lightly active adult over 50, the threshold is even lower. Here is what a dropping blood sodium level actually means at the cellular level. Sodium is the master mineral of extracellular osmotic pressure. When blood sodium falls, the kidneys interpret the shift as a signal of fluid overload and respond by dramatically increasing urine output, a process driven by the suppression of antidiuretic hormone. Your body does exactly what it should not. It eliminates water faster because you drank too much of the wrong kind. And in the process of generating that urine, it pulls magnesium, potassium, and calcium out with it. Magnesium is the mineral that controls the calcium channels inside muscle fiber cells. When magnesium drops, calcium floods the muscle cell unregulated, triggering sustained involuntary contraction. That is the calf cramp. That is the foot seizing at 3 inches the morning. That is the leg muscle that locks up during a walk and will not release for 30 seconds. It is not a simple hydration deficiency. It is a mineral cascade triggered by drinking too much demineralized plain water without the osmotic framework to make any of it cellular. The supplement industry saw this crisis and responded by selling you electrolyte powders loaded with sugar, artificial coloring, and doses of sodium so low they cannot meaningfully shift extracellular osmolarity. Most commercial electrolyte products contain between 5 and 40 milligrams of sodium per serving. Your body's serum sodium sits at approximately 3,400 milligrams per liter of blood. The math alone should make you put the packet down permanently. The solution is not a product category. It is a physiological strategy built from 3 compounds that work together at the molecular level to do exactly what aging cells have lost the ability to do on their own. Pull water through the membrane and lock it inside the tissue where it produces energy, prevents cramping, and restores the visible cellular volume that your skin and muscle have been losing for years. I am going to give you the full protocol with exact dosages, and I need you to stay with me through the science because understanding the mechanism is what keeps you consistent long enough to see results. The first compound is creatine monohydrate, and I need you to immediately discard every association you have with this molecule as a gym supplement for 20-year-olds chasing muscle pumps. Creatine is one of the most rigorously studied molecules in human physiology, with over 500 peer-reviewed clinical trials behind it. What those trials confirm, and what nobody in the wellness space explains to adults over 50, is that creatine is a powerful intracellular osmolyte. When creatine phosphate concentrations rise inside a muscle cell, they create a significant osmotic gradient that actively draws water through the cell membrane via osmosis. A 2003 study in the Journal of Applied Physiology confirmed that even low-dose creatine supplementation increased total intracellular water content in skeletal muscle by a measurable and clinically significant margin within 7 days. The cells literally reinflate. The sponge gets wet from the inside. The second compound is unrefined Celtic sea salt, and I need you to completely discard the fear you have been conditioned to feel about sodium. Refined table salt is sodium chloride stripped of every other mineral. Celtic sea salt, harvested from the coastal waters of Brittany, France, is a trace mineral matrix containing over 80 naturally occurring minerals, including magnesium, potassium, calcium, and a spectrum of rare earth elements that serve as cofactors in enzymatic reactions throughout the body. When you consume Celtic sea salt, you are not just adding sodium to your bloodstream, you are restoring the full mineral environment that extracellular fluid requires to create the concentration gradient that drives water movement. You are rebuilding the biological scaffolding that makes osmosis possible again. Sodium from real, unrefined salt also triggers the appropriate regulation of antidiuretic hormone release, telling the kidneys to stop the aggressive flushing cycle that plain water initiates. Instead of passing the water you drink straight through, the body begins holding it at the tissue level, directing it towards cells that have the creatine-driven osmotic pull waiting to receive it. These two compounds work in sequence, and the third one seals the result permanently. Taurine is an amino acid that functions as the body's primary organic osmolyte in both muscle and brain tissue. It is found in extraordinarily high concentrations inside skeletal muscle cells, cardiac muscle, and neurons precisely because its molecular structure allows it to regulate cell volume under osmotic stress. When a cell is losing water due to osmotic imbalance, taurine concentrations inside the cell increase as a compensatory mechanism to maintain volume. But after 50, taurine synthesis declines significantly. A 2019 study in the European Journal of Nutrition confirmed that circulating taurine levels drop by as much as 80% between young adulthood and age 65. Without adequate taurine, your cells cannot execute their own volume defense. Creatine draws the water in. Taurine is the compound that seals it there, preventing the outflux that would otherwise occur as osmotic equilibrium tries to reset. Together, these three compounds form the Intracellular Matrix Protocol, and the way you execute it matters as much as the compounds themselves. Every single morning, before coffee and before anything else, you will dissolve 3 grams of creatine monohydrate into 8 ounces of warm water. Warm water, not cold, because the thermal environment accelerates creatine dissolution and absorption. You will add a 1/4 teaspoon of Celtic sea salt to the same glass. Stir until both are fully dissolved. This combination creates a hyperosmotic priming solution that raises both intracellular creatine and extracellular mineral concentration simultaneously. Establishing the osmotic gradient, your cells need to begin pulling in water aggressively. At the same time, you will take 1,000 milligrams of L-taurine in capsule form. This dose is not arbitrary. Research from the journal Amino Acids confirms that 1 gram of taurine is the minimum threshold dose necessary to achieve measurable intracellular accumulation in muscle tissue in older adults. Below this dose, cellular uptake is insufficient to impact osmotic defense. At this dose, taken alongside the creatine and salt solution, taurine concentrates inside the cell, locks the absorbed water against osmotic leakage, and simultaneously supports the mitochondrial efficiency that generates ATP from that now hydrated intracellular environment. You will continue drinking water throughout the day, but you will add a small pinch of Celtic sea salt to every 16 ounces, not a full 1/4 teaspoon, a pinch. Enough to maintain the mineral matrix in your extracellular fluid without pushing sodium beyond physiological range. This transforms every glass of water you drink from a passive flushing agent into an active contributor to the osmotic environment your cells are now primed to exploit. Within 48 hours of beginning this protocol, most adults over 50 report a dramatic reduction in the urgency and frequency of nighttime urination. Within 3 to 4 days, the majority report a complete elimination of nocturnal leg cramps. By day 7, visible changes in skin texture become apparent, particularly on the backs of the hands and the forearms, where subcutaneous tissue hydration is most visually obvious. The skin regains a subtle fullness that no topical moisturizer can replicate because moisturizers address the surface, not the intracellular volume underneath it. Here is your challenge. The 7-day Cellular Plump Challenge begins tomorrow morning, and it is the most important commitment you can make to your body this week. Stop drinking plain, demineralized water as your primary hydration strategy. Starting tomorrow at waking, implement the Intracellular Matrix Protocol exactly as described. 3 grams of creatine monohydrate dissolved in 8 ounces of warm water, a quarter teaspoon of Celtic sea salt dissolved into the same glass, and 1,000 milligrams of L-taurine taken at the same time, every morning before coffee, for 7 consecutive days. Track 2 specific things. First, keep a simple daily tally of whether you wake during the night with muscle cramps. Night 1 may still produce cramping as the osmotic environment begins to shift. By night 2, most people are sleeping through. Second, on day 1 and day 7, pinch the skin on the back of your hand, lift it gently, and release it. Watch how quickly it snaps back. That recoil speed is called skin turgor, and it is one of the most sensitive clinical indicators of tissue hydration status used in hospital medicine. By day 7, the difference in that snap should be visible without anyone needing to explain it to you. Share this video with one person who wakes up with cramps, one person who drinks water all day and still feels like a shriveled raisin by 3 in the afternoon. This information is being suppressed by algorithms because it directly competes with the bottled electrolyte market, and sharing it is what keeps it reaching the people who need it. Subscribe and hit the notification bell right now, because the next video in this series will end your relationship with mainstream calcium supplements permanently. Research from the University of Auckland and 2 independent cardiology review panels has confirmed something so alarming about how isolated calcium supplements accumulate inside arterial walls rather than bone tissue that orthopedic specialists and cardiologists have been quietly disputing it in closed-door conferences for a decade. I will lay out the specific molecular reason your calcium supplement may be calcifying your arteries while doing absolutely nothing for your bones, alongside the precise alternative mineral protocol that actually delivers calcium to skeletal tissue where your body needs it. You will not want to have missed this one. Hit that bell before you close this